Afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Yatish. Today, I've got one of the experienced speaker, and he will be talking on supply chain management and warehousing. So, I would like to introduce Harbinder. Harbinder Singh Bedi. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you first of all, Yatish, for getting me this platform and calling me as a speaker here today. I'm very thrilled, very excited. No gyans, but yes, of course, it is going to be true, thorough experience what I have in the last 30 years in the warehousing, distribution, courier, logistics, transportation industry. So my name is Harbinder Singh Bedi. Most of you all know me. And yes, of course, today's session will be more towards talking about how a BD professional or a sales professional from a 3PL industry has to have a consultative approach while he's selling the solutions to a customer, the supply chain solutions to the customer. And talking about myself, yes, I've been in this industry now for almost 30 years, and it's been a very vast field. A vast supply chain is not a very small field, it's a very vast subject altogether. So I started with working with a chartered accountant. Yes, of course, that is helping me today to manage the P&L, and it helps me a lot when I give a consultative approach to the clients. So, not talking too much about myself, most of you all know me, but yes, of course, I would only like to start with a broad perspective saying that today most of the 3PL companies, I wouldn't name any of them, most of the 3PL companies, the top 5, top 10, have a very lean structure. And most of the BD sales professionals, they need to have a consultative approach and not just sell the white space to the client. And that is where something which I urge the top management of most of the 3PL companies to have a training and learning department wherein whenever you take any freshers, whenever you take any people from the management school, or you take people from the competition, they have sold a specific vertical, but they need to have knowledge of the operations, knowledge of the solution designing, knowledge of the finance, knowledge of amortization, and then they hit the field makes a lot of sense. And yes, of course, the 3PL industry, wherever they're working with or for, they need to have a proper strategy that how and where the approach has to be to which vertical, and you make your salesperson so strong for that vertical, giving him the operational knowledge, and you know as a company what you want to sell to the client or have a consultative approach to sell. So this is what I can talk about myself. And yes, of course, over to you, Yatish. We can discuss on the challenges also. So let me know what exactly the questions you have to pour in. You can shoot.
Okay, since we know each other more than 30 years, I think so we started long back. So, so since we are meeting after a long time, I would like to ask several questions and understand about consultative selling in supply chain solutions. So, so let's go with the first question. Is like, what are the biggest challenges and pain points of a 3PL while managing the operations in a warehouse, or what do you think, business development point of view?
Okay, good question. And the biggest challenges, first, I would go towards the operation side. The biggest challenges in a facility, in a warehouse, specifically when it is a shared facility, or it can be a standalone, but then specifically in a shared facility, you have various customers in that shared facility. Now, as an operational perspective, today, the biggest challenge the operations people face on ground is the manpower, the crunch of the manpower, the attrition rate. Because if you talk about the minimum wages which needs to be paid at the ground level, today, there are other companies in the market, especially the e-com industry, are picking up that manpower on contract at a higher salary. So let me give you an example that today the minimum wages, if you are giving a CTC of 20K and the guy ends up getting 13, 14,000 in his kitty or his pocket as a net take home, there are other people who are offering him 25, 30 as a CTC and he's still getting 20K. And so he's leaving the job and working elsewhere. So the attrition rate is very higher. People are not there at the ground level to work. Secondly, the biggest challenge is the spikes at the month end. be it any industry, whether it is FMCG, whether it is retail, e-commerce, grocery, most of the people today in the operations level are facing the crunch or the problem. The pain area is that they have these month-end spikes of the customer, which is again a trend which is not improving at that speed. And that's the biggest issue for an operation guy, because he says that at the month end spike, your solution designing team has specifically taken a manpower based on the throughput, based on the outbounds, the number of pieces or the number of SKUs. But yes, of course, at the month end spike, when I need to manage the operations, I don't have the manpower and the appropriate manpower. So sometimes the solutioning goes wrong in terms of the calculation of manpower just to meet the cost. Sometimes the salesperson is responsible where he has not taken into consideration the operational aspects and made the customer understand that yes, you need to have an extra manpower. So the solution to this, right from the horse's mouth, I have spoken to many people in the operations today of the top 4 to 5 companies in the 3PL industry, and they say that Harry, the biggest challenge here is or the solution here is that we need to have a pool of at least, if I have 5 customers or 5 verticals in a warehouse which is a shared facility, I can have at least 10 to 15 buffer pool of 10 to 15 people whom I can use. I can train them and keep for all 5 verticals, and I can use them at the month end spike. Now, this can be segregated. The cost can be segregated amongst those 5 customers in that warehouse, and it makes a lot of sense. But there are few people who are doing it. There are few 3PLs who are doing it, but there are few 3PLs who are not doing it. Now, here comes the consultative approach when, from the sales perspective or the BD perspective, you need to have that consultative approach of giving a good ear to the client, understanding or uncovering the pain areas of the client, making that relationship a rapport with the client, because at the client's end today, we have the supply chain team personnel who are either worked in the 3PL industry or they are much, much more qualified than you in terms of managing their own business. So you should not look like, I'm sorry to use that word, you should not look like a fool when you're sitting in front of the client. As a BD personnel, you should be one up against that, and you should know the vertical of that client before you go and meet them face to face. And it is very important to understand the scope of work. It is very important to understand their pain areas. It is very important to give them that solution. How would you give that? You are not, this is a team effort. So you need to have your solution designing personnel, your operations, and you have to discuss internally that this is what the client's pain area is, this is how we are going to approach. So there has to be a structural way of approaching that client. So today, most of the 3PL companies, I would say that they need to do that. They need to train their own internal people to have that kind of an approach. And when you are meeting as a team to the customer and having that approach of a consultant, what is a consultant's job? It is to meet ends, ensure that, okay, yes, the customer has this problem, I have a solution to it. What is that solution? My operation has a solution. Does the solution designing staff have a solution? Yes, they have a solution. So you go as a team and you approach them. Secondly, you need to have a knowledge about operations. So you need to be in the warehouse. As a salesperson, you can't be just doing marketing and selling and just trying to see where the RFQs are floated, which customer to approach. But the biggest challenge which even do not have right approach, I would say, and they're just going blindly in the market. So it is very important that you take the team together, approach. Am I audible, Atish?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah, speak.
Can you hear me, Atish?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. And the other challenges I would say, or I would like to address is in operations is today the knowledge of WMS, the knowledge of system, the knowledge of technology at the ground level. Now, what happens is today, as a 3PL, you may have your own indigenous WMS, you may have your own the Infos of the world, or you may have the other SAPs and Microsoft and everybody. Like today, most of the 3PL companies or the customers have an ERP which they are already using, which they already are accustomed to. So when they go to a 3PL, they obviously want to have a traceability of the inventory. So today, the biggest issue again is the sustainability and the traceability. So they need a live tracking for everything, right from the invert to the dock to the put away to the dispatches, and everything has to be real time track and trace. So for this, if you have at your ground level, you need to have people who are trained to operate the WMS, and the WMS has to be user friendly. So right now, as a consultant with one of the software companies where I'm currently assigned a job for, I'm working with them as a consultant, and I foresee that in the future, when AI is always there in the move, and people are talking about automation, AI, but I would say that the basics need to also be right. Today your staff, your uh, ground level people should feel that the software is user friendly. A, B, that they should find it very easy to operate. They can go to their managers and tell them, look, even whether it is Android, whether it is iPhone, whether it is any of the system, I can easily use this software. And I need to learn more about it, and you have a training session for them. And today, mind you, Yatish, that the industry is at a rapid pace and people want everything at the click of a button on the dashboard, whether it is TMS, whether it is WMS, whether it is tracking of your vehicle, tracking of your inventory, everything has to be there at the click of a button. So for that, internally, you need to be aligned. Your sales team needs to have a knowledge about the WMS, the software. You should know that how, which software, if suppose it is having the APIs, not having the APIs, whether it is server based, whether it is cloud based. These are some basic things. So once if you are aware even of that, have the knowledge of that, it is easier for you to go and sell in the market. It is easier for you to have that consultative approach. Next question, Yatish.
What are your biggest challenges in terms of logistic and transportation?
I'm not able to hear you, Yatish.
What are the biggest challenges in terms of logistic and transportation?
Sorry.
What are your biggest challenges in terms of logistics and transportation?
So I'm actually not able to hear you. So, hello.
One minute. See the message? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no worries, Yatish. I'll continue because this is a long subject, and of course, 30 minutes is also less time for us to speak the 30-year experience. But yes, of course, and the first and foremost and the most important thing is that the entire sales team of a 3PL or any of the operation guys, everybody keeps learning. This is a learning curve. It's a very endless subject. It's an endless topic. Even today, after 25, 30 years of experience, I'm still learning. I wouldn't say that I'm 100% correct or perfect in whatever I'm saying. But whatever I'm talking today is all through my experience, is all through my uh, ground experience, the selling experience with my customers. And if you take vertical wise, today every vertical, be it cold chain customers like ice cream, or be it FMCG customers, or be it retail customer, or be it e-commerce customer, or grocery customer, everybody has their challenges. So even if I talk about the grocery customers also, today the biggest challenge they have is the visibility, because unless and until you do not have a proper demand and forecast of what you need to have an inventory of and how much you need to have an inventory of, it is very difficult for you to have a future planning, and you can actually save on the capital investments what you make. Like if I'm today storing a inventory of 50 crores in a specific warehouse, and I do not have the visibility of the end-to-end visibility in terms of the demand, in terms of the planning, in terms of what I have in the stock, what I need to procure, what I need to order, I will be just blank because today, whether as I said, it's not only the grocery or it is not only the FMCG, everybody faces that challenge specifically on the demand and forecast. So they expect that the automation or the automation should happen on the demand forecast, on the planning. Like if you see the QSR industry today, whatever inverts they receive today in terms of the raw materials, also in terms of the uh, food business, when I'm talking about, they still don't have the QR. The suppliers are not giving them the QR codes, and there is no uh, visibility of what is coming in, what is being sold. So they have to ensure that they go one step ahead and they have a hardware, have a software which helps them to build those labels and put it on the boxes. So these are little small, minute problems, but then they create a bigger problem later on. Today, again, if I talk about the other industries, specifically the chemical, the pharma industries, and the food industry or the ice cream industry, they need a separate kind of a warehouse. So, if suppose today your focus is on a specific vertical, you have to train your sales team to be thorough in the knowledge of supply chain of that vertical, which I foresee is lacking. And it is just that people are being hired with 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years experience from this 3PL to that 3PL, and the journey goes on and so on and so forth. But then, if I have a shared facility and I know that I need to focus on specific verticals, I need to very well train my sales team on each and every supply chain aspect, demand forecast, planning of that vertical to my sales team. Otherwise, it is very difficult to have that consultative approach. Secondly, on the transportation part, today the biggest challenge the transporters also face is the infrastructure of our country, which we are still, of course, there is an improvement, but then I wouldn't say that there is a huge difference or an improvement on the quality, the structure, the infrastructure of the roads. We are still facing those issues. The driver lobby faces the issues of the manpower, the cleaners and the helpers. They don't get drivers. And the biggest challenge 3PL industry or a customer also when they manage their own warehouse is that they do not get the vehicles as per their demands at the time of their seasonalities. So when there is a season time, for example, when there is a season time, the entire ice cream industry ensures that they sign the LOIs and the contracts with the transporters in the month of November and December, so that in Jan, Feb, March, they do not have the scarcity of the vehicles. Similarly, it is with the other industries today. They are facing a crunch on that month end spike where they need more vehicles, but they do not have the vehicles. They do not have. Today, TMS promises you the PODs, the traceability of your vehicle, etc., etc. But then when it comes to the utilization of the vehicles, again, that is the biggest challenge for most of the supply chain personnel, be it the customer or be it the 3PL. Because right from the capacity of the vehicle or the loading capacity of the vehicle, what can be actually, whether it is 100% utilized, not utilized, is something which still remains a gray area for most of the supply chain personnel. And that is the reason that most of the transporters, when they are investing into the heavy vehicles or the bigger vehicles, whether it is dedicated or whether you're taking it from the market, it is very difficult to balance that requirement at the month end because the indent versus placement ratio is still not 100%. People say that by books that it is at 94%, 96%, 95%, but I would say that the ground realities are something else. And whether you take the market as a dedicated vehicle or you take the market vehicle, then still you are unable to manage that. Now, the reason for that is that people in the transport industry do not have the drivers, adequate drivers. They do not have the right kind of vehicles, and the investments are not. Like if you take wholesale companies today, they're at the fingertips. You can count the biggies who are there in the market, and they have their own vehicles, and they have the dedicated vehicles as well as they have the vehicles which they have from the market but are running under their name. So that is what I would talk on the transportation aspect. But again, yes, when we talk about consultation, it is important that you understand the financial aspects also. When you are amortizing a capex for a customer, it is your solution designing team who is sitting, and as a salesperson, you need to sit with them and ensure that if you're taking the cost of the racks from a particular vendor, or you're taking the cost of the pallet from a particular vendor, what is the market which is being sold at? What is that you are buying at? What is your buying capacity? Because the solution design guy is not a procurement guy. So you need to also have an angle of procurement within the 3PL organization who can actually be a good negotiator, and you create that vendor base to ensure that you have that kind of an asset base which can be created. Now, today, again, a build to suit or a ready made facility, which is ready to move facilities which the customers are asking for, can only happen if you are having the capability of procuring those assets for the customers and saying that, look, I have something which is just ready to move. Yes, that is an investment, but then at the same time, your cost is very important. So as a salesperson, if you do not understand the financial aspect of it, what is EBITDA, what is the bid, how do you calculate that, what is the impact of that finance on your sales call and the sales pitch? Because if today, you are selling as per the number of SKUs you're going to manage, or the number of inwards and outward, or the throughput you're going to manage. You can sell it at a per piece rate. You can sell it at a per pallet rate. But what happens when the customer is asking for a cost plus model? And there, if he sees that you are taking the rental at 30 rupees, 35 rupees, and the market is hovering at around 25, 26, so then it becomes difficult for a salesperson to even convince that customer. So today the customer is very smart. He understands that what an A grade facility is charged at or marketed at, or what is the rent which is there. So there are companies like you take any place in Bhiwandi today, whether it is Indospace, whether it is Wellspun, whether it is Antrix, whether it is ahead of the Parga toll naka, whatever companies are coming up with the warehouses or the A grade facilities, they are charging at an exorbitant price. But it is for the 3PL to negotiate in an appropriate manner, because at the end of the day, the rental plays the most important thing. At carpet, if you're buying the facility at 30 rupees, 35 rupees, I don't foresee you may fill your warehouse for a short span of period, but in terms of the long-term sustainability of the warehouse, it is very important that you go green, you try and save on electricity, you try and work out on rent, whatever best you can, and so on and so forth. But the biggest four important factors, as we all know, in the warehousing industry, while we are even monitoring the proposal, or we are going through the proposal internally for a customer, the rental, the capex, the opex are the three main factors, and the manpower, the fourth factor is all that the customer looks at. And if you are not at par with what the market is selling, it becomes very difficult for you as a salesperson. But then, yes, of course, the management would then ask you after the first 3 months, uh, that what is the ROI? After the first 6 months, what is the ROI? Which customers have you converted? Where are the RFQs? What is happening? But yes, what about the investment into the field personnel, the salespeople, the BD team? What is that? Like if you, for example, we talk about a leaner structure. And when you talk about a leaner structure, what do you mean by a lean structure? You can't be just having one or two guys in the western region, one in north, one in south, one in west, or rather one in east. You need to have a team. You need to have people who are focused on the market intelligence. You need to have a separate team who has a consultative approach, and you need to have a team who keeps on gathering competition information, what's happening in the market. So, I mean, I feel that all that sometimes an individual may have it, or sometimes the individual may lack. So he would require the team support, which is very important and very crucial. So that's what I can actually talk about. Uh, this subject is very vast. It can go on and on. But when I talk about my experience also, I worked in the cold chain. I worked with 3PL MNCs. I have worked with the Lala company. I have worked with a transporter. So it is all about the psyche. It is the mentality of the organization, how they want to approach the customer, and what is that they're looking at in return. Because if the customer does not find value in your proposition, he does not have any additional value other than what he is currently doing, he is not going to entertain you at all. Because we have to do the as a study, we have to understand the scope of work document by document or line item wise, that what exactly does the scope demand. Is my operation capable of managing this operation? Is my solution design capable of giving the solution for this customer or this vertical? This is what you need to know as a sales professional, as a consultative approach, if you need to have. Otherwise, just going that yes, we have a white space of 1 lakh square feet, we have a white space here of 50,000 square feet. Where are the leads? Where are the customers? What is happening? When is it closing? I feel that even how the salespeople are, coming out of that hurdles, what are the challenges they feel when they have when they go out in the market, and that needs to be addressed by the management. That needs to be addressed at the top level, because it is not all about uh, what I need to go and approach and sell in the market. It is about what is my company's strategy, where I'm working with or for, and what is that vertical they are focusing on, what is the business they want, what is the kind of profitability they are looking at. Is it a practically possible? B, let's make it happen. I'm a salesperson, I'll see what best I can do. I can get closer to what I my expectations are from my company. And this is how you can have an approach. The training is important. I again and again urge the same thing. I do not know how many people would like this approach of mine or not like, but then this is the practical ground reality that people need to train. You need to have a procurement department, you need to have a training department for ensuring that how strong, uh, because your sales professional, your BD professional is the face of your organization. And if he does not have that approach of consultation, and he is just going out in the market and getting you RFQs for transportation and for warehousing, I mean, that is half job done. But then there are customers in the market who just float the RFQs to get the L1, L2, and L3, and they know which is the L1 and whether they want to continue with the existing service provider or not. So there is a huge challenge in the market today. And yes, of course, software, WMS plays a very important role. And since I work for a company called People Plus Software as a consultant, which is a US based company, and we have 32 customers abroad. We are setting up our base in India. We have 50 people who are at the back end. Today, the biggest problem with most of the customers who are using the big names in the software industry is that they do not have the after sales service support, which we can give. They do not have the dashboard or the features which are user friendly, which can be used at the ground level, which we can also give. And it is all about, apart from the technical team, you need to have somebody from the supply chain background who's working with a software company, so it becomes easier for him to understand by putting himself in the customer's shoes. And the similar approach has to be there for a 3PL salesperson or a BD person, ensuring that he has to put himself in the shoes of the customer and understand the pain areas and give the solution appropriately.
So, can you hear me now?
Yatish, I'm seriously not able to hear you, but
Okay,
I
so
can still, I
what I
guess,
will what I will do
I
is
have done my job by sharing my experience. Uh, yes, of course, there is, I have not gone into the micro level. So whomsoever feels that, they need to follow me, consult with me, I'm available for that consultation.
you can
Thank you so much.
audience can also put up comments below the our video, and Harry will get back to you on this. So I thank you all for. I thank you, Harry, for sharing the experience, and I hope if you have any doubts, you can put up the comments below the